parenthood is great. We love our kids. We want the best for them, but we shouldn't have to martyr or sacrifice ourselves to achieve that. In fact, societies and communities as a whole benefit from parents who are present, who are healthy, energized, and can be there for their kids rather than being exhausted and burnt out.
You're listening to the Mindful Mama podcast, episode number 340. Today, we're talking about why self-care is not enough with Royah Loie. Welcome to the Mindful Mama podcast. Here, it's about becoming a less irritable, more joyful parent. At Mindful Mama, we know that you cannot give what you do not have, and when you have calm and peace within, then you can give it to your children. I'm your host, Hunter Clark Fields. I help smart, thoughtful parents stay calm so they can have strong, connected relationships with their children. I've been practicing mindfulness for over 20 years. I'm the creator of Mindful Parenting, and I'm the author of the best-selling book, Raising Good Humans, a mindful guide to breaking the cycle of reactive parenting and raising kind, confident kids. Hey, welcome back to the Mindful Mama podcast. This is an awesome episode, but listen, before we dive in, if you haven't done so yet, please hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you've ever gotten any value from this podcast, please do me a favor and go over to Apple Podcasts, go to Spotify, leave us a rating and review. It helps the podcast grow more. It takes 30 seconds and it really makes a big difference, and I greatly appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. In just a moment, I'm going to be talking to Royah Loie. She's a doula, web designer, creator of Insider Mom, a resource for uplifting tips and information needed for modern moms. And we're going to have a conversation about why self-care isn't enough and what we can do, what parents can do to get the support we need. We're going to talk about 3 things to do before hiring any care provider or sitter, the power of releasing expectations, and so much more. And I feel like this is such an important conversation. I've been reading a book for another podcast guest coming up, and just reiterated that fact that human beings, when human babies are born, unlike any other species and unlike any other primate species, we are so immature, right? Like, our babies are these little blobs. Their muscles are limp and all of these things. And they need so much, right? They need so many calories, so much support. They need so much before they're in any way at all self-sufficient. And it's interesting to think, like, how did we evolve that way, right? Because a mom can only do so much, right? Like, we have to also find our own food and all of those things. So the reason why we evolved this way is because we evolved in cooperation with each other, with many people. In the podcast with David Lancy, we talk about allo parents, right? Like other parents, people who are around supporting the growth of this baby and child, because our kids need so much support. So we're going to talk about this. It's so powerful. While we can't hold your baby for you, the 36 hours a year of live coaching in the Mindful Parenting membership do provide an incredible amount of support. Check out what husband and wife Daniel and Katrin had to say about the Mindful Parenting live coaching sessions.
Yeah, that has been great, and we've been really surprised that there aren't even more people in those calls. It really helps to see that you're not alone with your problems, and other people have similar problems. And even if they have different problems, it's nice to see that the tools work for them. And it's always interesting to get tips on which tools to use in which situation.
Like you said, you learn from other people's problems, but you also so often get a chance to bring up your own issues that came up in the days or weeks before the call. So it's really good to have some feedback or some input on how to handle things.
You actually get a personalized recommendation, how it applies to your specific situation and not some abstract scenario.
To learn more about the Mindful Parenting membership and get on the wait list, because we only open our doors a few times a year, go to mindfulparentingcourse.com. That's mindfulparentingcourse.com. And when you do, I'll send you a bunch of free resources and we'll let you know when the doors open. Okay, on to this episode. I'm excited to talk to you because, I talk about self-care a lot. Self-care I say is our responsibility, right? It's not selfish, it's our responsibility in a lot of ways, because we have to take care of ourselves to show up for our kids. And you're a doula, a mom, web designer, among other things. And you say that self-care isn't enough. So tell me about what you mean when you say self-care isn't enough.
Yeah. So in my work as a doula, I've supported a lot of moms, like physically and emotionally. And we have the power to birth, ourselves if we wanted to, but it's not the same as having a support system or a support network or somebody there helping you and actually being present with you so that you can help yourself calm down, focus on your inner body and really come to a state of feeling safe and feeling relaxed and calm. So when I say self-care isn't enough, I think so much of what the media says, so much of what society says is that, like, okay, this is just a band-aid. Go ahead and practice self-care. Go take a bubble bath. Go light a couple of candles or, drink more water, these are all great things, but it's really not enough with the stress and burnout that a lot of moms face. And especially during this pandemic, which we've, had to deal with a lot of stuff, school closures, stress, related to work or family life. I think, just saying that just practice self-care, it's not helpful. So
Mhm.
what can we do? Like there are several things we can do is we can actually reach out and ask for help. And what I mean by that is not just saying, oh, I need, a cup of tea or I need this or that. Those can be helpful too, but actually setting up a support system, knowing that, okay, this is not working. Maybe I need support with childcare here. Maybe I can ask my partner, even if it's on the weekends. I understand like our partners might be working during the week. Maybe there are some hours on the weekend that we can really have time to focus on ourselves, like actually having community care there, not just self-care, I think is really, really crucial.
I think you're pointing to such an important thing in that at least in the United States, it's such an individualist society. It's so influential all around the world, this a way of thinking that that we just like there's this pressure to just solve every problem on your own. And even like when and there's even when it comes to things like large systemic problems. We were told for years with climate change, like recycle and like get some solar panels and do these individual acts on your own, when that's a BS answer, because it really takes big systemic change on the governmental level to be able to address like the problem we have. And there are other problems like that in the world, right? That where we need to think collectively, and we have to have a collective answer to some of the problems. And what you're pointing to is like, you know, we we absorb this mindset, of individualism, and we come to parenting, we come to birth, we come to parenting, and we start to think, oh, I just need to, so for some reason, like we're a little more into it with birth, right? Like we're like, okay, yeah, I might need like a team of people because the physics of it maybe.
Totally.
But then when it comes to like parenting, which is in a lot of ways, the challenges are very great in a lot of ways, and we come to this situation, we think, oh, I'm just supposed to sort of do it all on my own, that we have also absorbed that kind of mommy martyr experience, right? And that isn't this is like a not helpful mindset. Like this is something we've got to like look at and examine and toss it in the garbage, this idea.
Absolutely. And you bring up a really valid point on it being a collective, community wide thing that needs to be, tackled even on a government federal level. Because, for example, like I live in actually Canada. So here I've noticed, and I've lived in the States as well too. And I've noticed that maternity leave policies are drastically different. Like some women don't get very much maternity leave, if anything at all, after giving birth and are called back to work in the States. That's not the case here. women here get up to 18 months of maternity leave, and much of that is paid. So I think really trying to rethink these things and figuring out what countries are doing what, who's supporting moms, who's supporting women, and how can we learn from them, and demanding more from our communities, demanding more from, people in power who can create this sort of change. Because there's a lot of unpaid labor that goes into, motherhood, that goes into parenthood. And yes, it's wonderful. Parenthood is great. We love our kids. We want the best for them, but we shouldn't have to martyr or sacrifice ourselves to achieve that. In fact, societies and communities as a whole benefit from parents who are present, who are healthy, energized, and can be there for their kids rather than being exhausted and burnt out. And it's just not sustainable.
Yeah, I completely agree. I have a friend who lives in the Netherlands. She's from the US and she lives in the Netherlands. And man, she pays a ridiculous amount of money for a chicken, but she gets so many benefits. It's amazing. She had like totally free childcare from like as soon as she wanted it. She had totally free childcare called creche. It's like a creche system where you can like go and they feed your kids lunch and whatever you need. Like you have this available and it's all over the place, all around the country. I mean, that's amazing, right? Like why that would benefit entrepreneurs, that would benefit businesses. Like it's actually a very pro business stance, like kind of, I think, to think about that. So we're getting a little political here, I guess, Royah, but I think that this is a political stance I feel very firmly about as well. Anyway, is
Totally. And
more support for parents.
I absolutely agree. And it's not something that has to be any sort of party's agenda, or being one-sided at all. I think this is, I think mothers, regardless of your political beliefs or backgrounds, I think wherever you're living, I think if we really care about women, if we really care about mothers, if we really care about families and kids and their well-being, like we will tackle these issues and we will make sure that they are listened to. And yeah, it's definitely universal.
So, okay. So I'm so glad we like put that piece out there because as we start to think about, okay, yes, and we have to accept that maybe we're in a system that is not that supportive, right? And how can we kind of work with it individually? I think it's important to realize like, yes, you should be PO'd that all this individual pressure is on you. And that's not fair. I think I kind of feel I feel some sort of righteous fierceness about that personally. And I think that's not fair. And but the isolation, but there are some things we do as far as isolating ourselves as parents that we choose, right? Like sometimes we choose not to maybe take advantage of services, or we think that we, I've seen moms like living in fear of, having X number of hours away from their kids a week, or, even if it's just a few to do that self-care, right? Have you seen that as well in your work?
Absolutely. And what I've noticed is, and even personally, I had this fear myself when my daughter was a baby. I was just terrified of somebody else like watching her, looking over her. And I was somebody outside of, family or people I knew. And it was one of those, it wasn't an irrational fear because I think, we need to have that level of trust in order to be able to be comfortable, accepting childcare. Yet we need to know how to go about it. So, for example, what I did to overcome that fear is I set up a process. I wrote down interview questions. I created like an application for myself that anytime I hired or was looking to hire a babysitter, I asked them these crucial questions. I got their references and I called every single one of them. And that really helped me choose and find people that really cared and that my daughter loved being around. I mean, she was happy whether it was as a baby or toddler playing or, going to a nursery school or preschool. Like I would visit, I wouldn't just do the one that was or go to the one that was closest to home. I would see which one has the best environment, which one has the best educators, caregivers who actually care, you can actually see it in their eyes, how they act and interact with the kids. How does my child feel around them? And then you come home after, picking your kid up and you're like, oh, they had a great day. I had a great day. So you feel so much better and that fear is gone. But yeah, it will be there if you're just, giving up that childcare for your own self-care or your time to do your own work. If you don't trust where your child is going or the person they're being cared for by.
Stay tuned for more Mindful Mama podcast right after this break. I am thrilled that we are supported by Rasa, the adaptogenic herbal coffee alternative, because this is so important. Whether you drink coffee or you don't, it really can impact your life and make such a big difference. So caffeine, how much caffeine you get is so important, because caffeine has this incredible half-life where it's in your body 6 hours after you've had it. So to have good sleep, I really avoid any coffee after like 11 a.m. And I like my espresso in the morning, but I'm loving my Rasa adaptogenic herbal coffee anytime after that. It energizes and makes you feel sane and healthy and not jittery. I'm just loving it. Lately, I've been drinking a lot of Rasa's classic adaptogenic herbal coffee, the original one. The original and the calm are my favorites because they just similar taste to coffee, where it really fits this like bold and lovely flavor that I like in coffee, and I love it in Rasa too. It's totally the answer to that question, like, should I make a second cup of coffee? Instead, you make some Rasa. Then you get these adaptogens that give energy without the caffeine, meaning none of the anxiety or crash that comes with that second cup. I can't wait for you to try Rasa. They even have an online quiz, so you can easily find the perfect blend just for you. Right now, you get 20% off your first purchase. Go to wearerasa.com/hunter. That link is right in the show notes wherever you're listening to this, even on your phone. You can go over to where the notes are and scroll down, and you'll find wearerasa.com/hunter. Use my special promo code HUNTER20. That's the promo code is HUNTER20. Order now at wearerasa.com/hunter and use the promo code HUNTER20 to get 20% off. Okay, that's awesome. And we can do things. We can, like, I think that's really important to just, and this is a part of the conversation I wanted to have with you, is like, okay, what can we do to get more support in our lives? And so you were talking about that, like getting a caregiver, when one of the first steps I did was I had a mother's helper. So I did things in my studio in my house, or I went for a walk from my house when my husband was we have a situation where we both work from home, which a lot of people now have, but where this homeschool kid who was great, I think she should run for president one day now, but
that's so cool.
I would say, here, let me put the ergo on you, and here's my child. Go for a walk, have fun, and I'm going to go do whatever I'm going to do around here. So that was like a first step situation that really, really worked for me. And then when we wanted to kind of do other things, and I came back and I was more refreshed, I was less stressed, all of those things. So let's walk people through, like you said, you had questions, like what are some things that you did actually ask caregivers that mattered and made a difference to you and in your safety level?
For sure. So one of the questions I would always ask is, have you done this work before? Do you have references? That was number one. Sometimes, some caregivers were, college students or high school students, and they didn't have as much experience, but some of them, they were just very caring people. And they did have references. So I get that, but I would always ask, what are your hobbies? And that to me signifies like, okay, what does this person actually enjoy doing in their downtime? And for me, like something that made me uncomfortable in a couple of, interviews was somebody not having any hobbies at all. And that might sound simple, but their answer was sort of like, oh, just being on the computer, chatting with my friends or on the phone. That's it. And I wanted
Yeah.
somebody.
Red flag.
Exactly. I wanted somebody who wouldn't be on the phone or on the computer on devices all the time. I wanted somebody who could practice presence, who was creative or artistic, who could draw or doodle or scribble. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate, but who would love to play games or go outside. So that to me was important to me. A couple of other questions I would ask is, how they felt about, working with kids, and what their major was, if they were studying. And if they weren't studying, that wasn't even, crucial as, how were they interacting with my child? Because a lot of times, not all the time, if I wasn't 100% comfortable, but a lot of times I had to take my daughter with me to the interviews. So it would just, gauge how she felt, how I felt. And so just also the questions, it also depends on what your values are and what you want to see. So for example, you might need help with a little bit of housework. Or you might really think that you might have a pool at home and be afraid of your kid drowning. So like somebody with lifeguard certification, CPR certification, I mean, that's always good across the board. So those would be the certifications that I would ask for. But yeah, just asking additional essential questions that would put you at ease and not being afraid to ask them.
Yeah, I think those are great. And the CPR certification is great. And not everybody has that, but then you can say, what would you do? What would you do if my child got a boo-boo? What would you do if there was something that was seriously, they were really hurt or something like that? Like those are all good questions to ask, and you find out a lot about a person from doing those. And I love that you mentioned like you need help with housework, and that's something that you can hire for. And it can be sometimes the same person who may be watching your kid. Like you can say, I had a friend who had someone come in watching her child, and she, for a little while, had it worked out with her where she would give her like a gift, a Trader Joe's gift card. And she would hire this person to go pick up a bunch of groceries for her at Trader Joe's before she came to come and watch the kids. And she would put all the groceries away and she would get all her grocery shopping done like through this experience. And that's something you can ask for. Like we don't have to be like silently suffering for all the things that, that we hate doing. Like, no, you don't have to do that.
Totally. And you mentioned that, hiring somebody or like, giving the Trader Joe's card. I actually hired, it was a high school student who was also a babysitter for my daughter. And I didn't want to do laundry because I had some studies that I had to do and I had some training I had to go through and I just didn't have time and I was overwhelmed at that time. And I'm like, are you okay doing the laundry? And she was totally cool with it. She did it, several times. I mean, she didn't only come for doing laundry. She helped out, with childcare too. But there was something that you mentioned earlier too about, having somebody come to your home, putting the ergo on them, like I did that too. For me, it was really important that I see how they worked in the environment. So even before I felt comfortable going out, I had, the childcare provider come to the home and I saw how they interacted. And yeah, and a lot of people think, okay, you have to pay a really high amount. You can, if you can afford it and you want to, hire a really high quality nanny, but you can also, hire babysitters who are, either starting out or have enough experience. And as long as it's giving you time to either focus on work that you want to focus on projects that you want to focus on, or focus on your self-care, it is totally valid because what you get back from it is 10 times worth the amount that you're paying for that service. And it can be so, so helpful.
Yeah. I mean, I really think if you, dear listener, like if you have kids who are like under school age, right? Like who are not going to school regularly and you're home with them kind of all the time. Like I just want to tell you that this is such an intensive time of your life. Like this is such an intense time. And we kind of go into this thinking, well, this is the new normal. This is how my life is going to be forever now. And I just have to get used to this. Right. But that's not true. It is not true that your life is going to be like this forever. It's not at all true. Like it radically changes when your kid goes to school and as they get older and more responsible and they can take care of themselves. Now my girls kiddos are 11, 14, like it's so different, as far as the amount of time and space, they have different challenges. I'm glad I'm able to be there for those different challenges that in some ways can be harder. But it's not as intensive as far as like your every second amount of time. So if you have kids who are under school age, like I really recommend like this is the time, if you have the means and are able to be able to spend some of your resources to give yourself breathing space, because it is so intensive, and it does not last forever. It changes. It is a really intensive time, and for you to get through this situation with your feet on the ground, responding to your kids the way you want to respond to your kids, not losing it, um, and have a, you know, have an intact sense of self and peace and ease and all of that. Like it really is an important time, that particular time, to be able to going beyond self-care to get more support.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. I've noticed the same thing with my daughter too. Like the school age years are very different from like the toddlerhood, preschool, kindergarten years. And things change. Like we think we're stuck in that, we're going to be stuck in that situation where it's going to be a continuous grind. We're going to have to like really find those pockets of time for ourselves. But in reality, especially with COVID too, I think, whether it's COVID or not though, we should not feel guilty for asking for help for our own self-care. We should be allowed, or we should allow ourselves to ask at least, an hour, a couple hours a day, or even, a few hours each day of the weekend, if it's our partner or somebody who's living with us, if it's a family member, if it's a parent, or there's so much value in work that mothers do at home, and it is unpaid labor, but it's not valued as much as it should be. And I think that collectively we need to understand that we all need support, and it is okay to ask for it. So it doesn't always have to be paid. It can be, and that is very helpful. But the people around us, we shouldn't feel guilty asking them for that help.
Yeah. Or even just stating that, like, sometimes I even get frustrated with the word asking, right? Like you don't need permission. You're like, if you're in a heterosexual marriage and you're married to a man, you don't need to ask your husband permission to take care of your needs. Like sometimes
Totally.
we get into these traditional roles. If we're in the role of caretaking and our partner may be in the role of earning income for a certain time. And we get into this idea of like almost like permission, like we're asking our father for permission to do something. And I want to pull that out and point that out, because if you're like listening to this, dear listener, and going, oh yeah, like I've been kind of like, that's a red flag that you're not valuing yourself enough. You're not valuing the work, the incredibly important life creating work that you're doing, parenting your child and taking care of your family, and you're not valuing yourself enough. Nobody ever said to you when you were a newborn baby, like, oh, this person has to do backbreaking work that leaves her exhausted, and before I'm going to love her and value her. No, you are intrinsically worthy of breaks, rest, and time to yourself. Stay tuned for more Mindful Mama podcast right after this break. I love that we are supported by Thrive Cosmetics, because they are amazing and I use their products every single day. I mean, what's not to love? High performance beauty and skincare products made with clean, skin loving ingredients, no parabens, no sulfates, no phthalates. And there's the name cause, like CAUS is in the name for a reason, because every purchase supports organizations that help women thrive. It's so great. So I am loving the two products of Thrive Cosmetics that I absolutely use nearly every single day are their Liquid Lash Extensions Mascara, which is a best-selling product with over 20,000 five-star reviews for a reason, because it's so different from other mascaras. It's ultra lengthening, it lasts all day, it doesn't clump or smudge or anything like that. It has this like tubing formula. It makes it really easy to remove. It slides right off with warm water and a washcloth. You don't even have to use soap. It really just is the best mascara I've ever used. And the other thing I use all the time is the Brilliant Eye Brightener. The color I use is Aurora, which is a rose gold shimmer. I order this again and again and again. It's this cream to powder highlighter stick. It opens your eyes, it gives them an instant lift. You can bring some into the corner of your eye, and it makes your eyes like a brighter and more awake. It really helps you look like you've had plenty of sleep, even if you haven't. So I absolutely love it. And the other thing that I am loving is their Defying Gravity Eye Lifting Cream. It's this cream that really just lifts, tightens, it brightens the skin around your eyes, it makes it very hydrating, really just reduces my circles and puffiness. And it's really like this lovely beauty sleep in a bottle. So all these great products and the Bigger Than Beauty mission. For every product purchase, Thrive Cosmetics donates to help women emerging from homelessness, surviving domestic abuse, fighting cancer, and more. So it's like you're giving to the world while you're making your eyes look amazing. So now is the time to try Thrive Cosmetics for yourself. Right now, you can get 15% off your first order when you visit thrivecosmetics.com/hunter. And that link is right in the show notes wherever you're listening to this. That's Thrive Cosmetics, CAUSEMETICS.com/hunter for 15% off your first order.
Exactly. I totally agree. It matters a lot, because I think, falling back into those traditional roles and what we've seen in the past year or two is actually what has happened, unfortunately, because I think in society, like, even there's still issues with equal pay. There's still issues with moms having to drop out of the workforce because there wasn't childcare for their kids, during a global pandemic. I understand that. I get that. I think we all do. At the same time, we've realized that, wait, things weren't as modernized as we thought. We were put back in these traditional roles. But how do we shift from that and being like, okay, we're in this situation. Yes, as a mom, I may have decided to, spend more time with my kid, helping out with, homeschooling or virtual schooling, taking a step back from, my work responsibilities so I can be home and be present. But, for those, with partners, if my partner is present, they may have to do work online 5 days a week. I may have to do it, 5 days a week or 3 days a week, or maybe we can adjust that, where 3 days a week, one of us takes a kid or kids out to the park, and the 4 days a week, the other person does that, and then switching off, like bringing in like more equality to the relationship, bringing in more equality to the support, because yes, one partner may or may not be bringing an income, but I don't think that is what actually matters. I think taking care of kids in itself is an extremely valuable job. And, what we are teaching our kids, I mean, I think there's even a greater appreciation for teachers and caregivers, because we understand the work that is required to raise tiny humans. So yeah, it matters a lot, and we should not have to ask for permission, but we do have to communicate. We have to be like with our support system, whether it's our friends or our partner. Look, I'm burnt out, or look, I'm really tired. I really need X amount of hours per day, or I need these time blocks on the weekend to focus on my fitness, my health, whatever it may be.
Yeah. Yeah. And you, Roya, have had to take some of this time to take care of yourself because you have been dealing with chronic pain, right? Like, so
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that, how you've been in this process of healing from pain as a parent. And I mean, it's particularly interesting to me, actually, I should tell you right now, because I mean, yesterday, as of recording this, I was at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia with my 14-year-old daughter who's been diagnosed with AMPS, which is amplified musculoskeletal pain syndrome. And it's really heartbreaking for me to know, and I've known for a while now, that she feels pain kind of all the time right now. She has, we have hope now of this not being a chronic, you know, situation that she could maybe heal from in as little as 3 months, that I feel really hopeful about. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you, that it's very personal to me, this kind of understanding of this idea of living with pain right now. But tell me about
Absolutely.
your experience. Yeah.
Yeah. As for my personal experience, so when the pandemic hit, prior to that, I had been going to the gym several days a week, and I believe it was a prior injury due like lifting heavy luggage, stuff I shouldn't have been lifting, but it was sort of masked because I was working out, strengthening my muscles, making sure I was healthy. The pandemic hit, the gyms closed, I stopped going, I started sitting a lot. And I noticed over time, like this nagging pain in my lower back kept increasing. And it wasn't just like your common, like, mild chronic back pain. It started increasing so much to a point where I couldn't get out of bed. Like it was difficult to get up. And there were some days where I was like, I have no idea what's going on with my body. I need to call my doctor. I need to ask, what's going on. And they sort of brush it off as, oh, it's just, an issue with your muscle. You might have pulled a muscle in your back. Just, do yoga or work out, gently. And I'm just like, okay. So I tried all those methods. I did massage therapy. I even did physiotherapy. And it was still getting progressively worse. I started even like walking with a trekking pole or two, just to get out of that, like, and to get the support I needed. But my mentality at that point was, okay, I'm going to take this opportunity during the pandemic to focus on like my digital work. And I was working online at the computer for hours, but I realized I was laying down in a bed, lying down with my laptop on my stomach and working
Oh,
like that, just trying to
oh,
grind and hustle.
oof. That sounds
Horrible.
like a bad position for the back.
Absolutely. And I was icing it. I was trying to do all the right things, but that the working and focusing on, my work online was like, it was counterproductive. It was like my body was telling me, Roya, stop. You need to focus on me right now, on yourself, and heal this before you do anything else. And it got to a point where it was so painful that I decided, that's what I'm going to do. And long story short, I finally went for an MRI, and I actually, asked for it because they were saying, oh, a woman your age shouldn't require an MRI. It's probably nothing. If you have sensation in your limbs, it should be okay. But it's just like, it's not okay. So they found out it was a herniated disc.
Mm.
And for herniated discs, like the option is either surgery or physiotherapy. And I wanted to go the no surgery physiotherapy route. I thought that was best for me. And I started researching online people who had done this before. And I actually found images, MRI images and studies of people who've healed completely on their own through physiotherapy. But I'm like, okay, what do I have to do to reach that point? I realized anytime I lifted something heavy, even like groceries or heavy objects or like bending down a certain way, it would exacerbate the issue. So I just told myself, you know what? I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to sit for long periods. I'm not going on any travels or trips. Well, couldn't really anyway. But even long car rides or even sitting at my desk, I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. I just eliminated a lot of these things that I was doing before. And I started a physiotherapy program, but since I knew what was wrong, I could actually tackle the pain point and actually solve the issue and avoid positions, even, yoga positions that I shouldn't be doing, and focus on the yoga movements or the movement therapy program that I should be doing. And I've gotten to a point where I'm almost 100% pain free. I'm still on my healing journey. There's still a few more months to go. But I've read it takes up to 6 months, and I'm around that mark. I'm getting close to it. But it really taught me the need for me to step back and really focus on what mattered most. Do I want to be grinding and hustling when it's going to increase my pain, make me feel worse? Do I need to listen to my body? It's telling me to stop and take this season, this entire year, this entire next several months to just focus on me, find out the problem, get it diagnosed, and then research the solutions and eliminate things that I shouldn't be doing and focus more on those that I should. And then I think that is the key, one of the keys for a path to healing that actually works. Because if you keep doing what you were doing before, it's not going to change anything. It's only going to exacerbate the issue.
So what I'm kind of hearing from you is this awareness, right? Like you have to be able to not be so busy that you can like look and see what are the messages my body's sending me. And, maybe we can, with enough awareness, we can get to those messages like before it's like terrible, right? Um, and and making yourself a priority as far as this goes, right? Like and making your healing a priority. I mean, I think that sometimes it's funny, Roy, because it reminds me of something like sometimes like when I'm in a coaching call with a mindful parenting member, and we talk about like kind of circling even back to like getting support, getting help in childcare. And I'm talking to somebody who's like overwhelmed. And I say, imagine that you had a doctor who said that you have this terrible disease, and if you have to find some way to get some breaks from your child, like say 3 hours of breaks a week, or this terrible disease is going to happen. Like it's almost like the mindset we need is to say like this, to kind of look and say, you know, this self-care, this support, these things that I need, they're the things that are allowing me to do everything in my life. Like they are the foundation, right? For everything, right? Your sleep, your health, your body, your mind, all of that is the foundation for everything. And it's all going to collapse into overwhelm if you're not paying attention with awareness and you're not prioritizing it.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Because you do need to prioritize your health, your body, and just like listening to those signals. And I love that you have them focus on, those 3 hours that you need, or prioritizing yourself because, things will get worse, because they do get worse. We know with stress, I mean, stress itself can cause disease unnecessarily. Stress itself can cause all sorts of ailments. Lack of sleep, which a lot of parents experience, is not healthy for the body. But
it's crazy. Yeah. Like they're really linking it to Alzheimer's now. So if you don't want to
Yeah.
have dementia as a, you know what I mean? Like they're really, because the brain apparently is like cleansing itself. Like it gets flooded with fluid, and like there's like a plaque that gets cleansed like as you sleep, like that the brain cleanses itself. And if you don't sleep enough, it's like this buildup of gross like stuff in your brain that is that has all these, like something like 40% of people in the US are sleep deprived. Sorry, just want to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, and you bring up a really valid point. It can create those issues. And I had to tell myself that, multiple times, where I need to get back on track with my sleep. And I noticed when I stopped watching, the Netflix shows at night and stopped working on the computer till like, late hours in the evening, I realized I was more well rested. But I also get the point of like, okay, not having enough time to yourself during the day and needing those few hours just to veg out and to watch something. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this maybe 2 to 3 nights on the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then the weeknights, I really need to focus on my health and well-being. So yeah. So to get sleep, that's what we need to do. We need to like prioritize it. It matters so much.
Mm. All right. So are we missing any creative ways to get support? we're saying like, girlfriend, it's worth it to hire a care for your child. Like, I totally believe that. I think it's really incredibly valuable. Like at one point, like, and this, what I'm saying comes from a place of like privilege, that my husband got a 3% raise at his job. And we were like, how are we going to use that? And he's like, let's hire more, like, let's get a babysitter more often. That's what makes us happier, right? Because it was in that very intensive time when we need breaks. And I know that comes from a place of the privilege of having that. Like, we're not working 3 jobs, but have we neglected any other like creative ways to get care and to get that support in our lives?
I think what you mentioned is very helpful. I think there are various options for like various budgets. So not everybody can, for example, afford like a nanny, but like most people can afford a babysitter. Not everybody can send their child to daycare for 5 days a week, but maybe a couple days it might be doable for some. So it's looking at your budget, seeing what's possible. I think it's also like we discussed earlier, getting support from our spouses, partners, friends, anybody who can offer that. But also, figuring out ways where we can also find time for ourselves through like evaluating how we're using it. Like, how are we using our hours in the evening? How are we using our hours in the morning, throughout the day? And understanding, sometimes it is spending that time with our kids. One actual creative way that I found is doing something I love with my kid is actually also a form of self-care. So my daughter's old enough to like knit, and I've been teaching her how to knit. And it is a very calming activity. And I noticed that when we do it together, I bought her own knitting supplies because she was like rummaging through mine, and it would get like all tangled up. And I was just like, and we don't do anything fancy or elaborate, just I only know, the plain knitting threads and options, but it's just really something that's calming to do. Or coloring books. Like, we both love to color. You can be any age and love to fill in, coloring books. So I would get like 2 or 3 separate coloring books, and we'd sit down and do that. And mentally, that is a form of de-stressing and self-care. So when you don't have the option to either hire help, or the help you have at home is not available during that time, there are ways we can de-stress that involves our kids too.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I'm hearing you say is that like your need, regardless of your financial situation, your needs matter.
Yeah.
And so we can have creative ways to meet your needs. So like, you may have a kid that will go and doesn't want to nap anymore, but you may still have a need for rest after lunch. And you can do that, right? Like, you can say, I need quiet time. I need rest. I'd like to color and play this quiet music now because I'm needing some quiet time, right? So we tend to just sort of sublimate our own needs. A lot of moms sublimate our own needs for our kids, but your needs are just as important as your kids' needs.
You're absolutely right. Totally.
Roy, this is so helpful. Thank you for kind of digging into the nitty gritty of this, the, you know, the support, getting the support we need, and just kind of thinking about the idea of how to hire a sitter, the questions, that's so valuable and helpful, right? Like, sometimes we need to just have someone help us walk through it, right? Before we realize yes, you have permission to get support. Yes, it will make you a better parent to get support and to get breaks. It will make you a better person. It'll make you a better parent, a better partner when you have breaks. I mean, that's what I think. I don't know.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. And I really loved this conversation. And I wish I had heard, some other moms talking about this when I first, had my daughter. But I think it's something that we can, discuss and put out there, based on our own personal experiences, helping other moms who are going through a similar situation. And just knowing that they're understood, they're enough as they are. And we can give ourselves that permission. Absolutely.
Yes. And if you need someone else to give it I give you permission.
Totally.
I give you permission to get support. Royah, it's been so lovely talking to you. And Royah is a doula and web designer, and she has a wonderful podcast called The Insider Mom. So where can people find out more about what you're doing, Royah?
Sure. If they'd like to check it out, I'm on Instagram at The Insider Mom, Facebook at The Insider Mom, or insidermom.com.
Awesome. And you can hear our conversation there about mindful parenting. So thank you so much for coming on the Mindful Mama podcast, Royah. And I really, really appreciate you doing this with me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Hunter. It was a pleasure.
I feel like this conversation is so important. You know, we've been brainwashed to think that we should be doing this by ourselves, and that's complete BS. This is not how humans evolved, and we absolutely need support. So I hope that this episode has inspired you to want to get some more support in your life for your parenting by hook or by crook. You know, just remember, like, a lot of us, we mistakenly think that when we have a couple of kids and it's crazy, and we just think, oh my God, it's going to always be like this. But the truth is that those earlier years when your kids before kindergarten, they are time-wise the most intensive years. And that is absolutely when it really, really makes sense to get support, to get help, to have breaks, all of that stuff, and to get help if we have some patterns that we want to turn around. Remember, you can get on the Mindful Parenting waitlist at mindfulparentingcourse.com. You can join the hundreds of families all around the world who are transforming their unhealthy patterns into positive, connected relationships. It's so amazing. So that's at mindfulparentingcourse.com. And hey, listen, if you appreciated this episode, I would love to hear your takeaways. Are you going to get some help? Let me know at Instagram at mindfulmamamentor. Tag me. Let me know. Take a screenshot of this episode, share it around. Let me know. My friend, I am so glad you are here today. I'm so glad we got to share this time. I hope it's been helpful. And of course, I will be back here talking to you again next week with another powerful episode. Next week, we are going to be doing an awesome on-air coaching call about ignoring my questions. So if that's something you deal with, definitely be around when this drops on Tuesday. And I can't wait to connect with you then. Thank you so much for listening today. Namaste.
I'd say definitely do it. It's really helpful. It will change your relationship with your kids for the better. It will help you communicate better. And I'd say communicate better as a person, as a wife, as a spouse. It's been really a positive influence in our lives. So definitely do it.
I'd say definitely do it. It's so worth it. The money really is inconsequential when you get so much benefit from being a better parent to your children and feeling like you're connecting more with them and not feeling like you're yelling all the time or you're like, why isn't things working? I would say definitely do it. It's so worth it. It'll change you.
No matter what age someone's child is, it's a great opportunity for personal growth, and it's a great investment in someone's family. I'm very thankful I had this.
You can continue in your old habits that aren't working, or you can learn some new tools and gain some perspective to shift everything in your parenting.
Are you frustrated by parenting? Do you listen to the experts and try all the tips and strategies, but you're just not seeing the results that you want? Or are you lost as to where to start? Does it all seem so overwhelming with too much to learn? Are you yearning for a community of people who get it, who also don't want to threaten and punish to create cooperation? Hi, I'm Hunter Clark-Fields, and if you answered yes to any of these questions, I want you to seriously consider the Mindful Parenting membership. You'll be joining hundreds of members who have discovered the path of mindful parenting and now have confidence and clarity in their parenting. This isn't just another parenting class. This is an opportunity to really discover your unique, lasting relationship, not only with your children, but with yourself. It will translate into lasting, connected relationships, not only with your children, but your partner too. Let me change your life. Go to mindfulparentingcourse.com to add your name to the waitlist, so you will be the first to be notified when I open the membership for enrollment. I look forward to seeing you on the inside. mindfulparentingcourse.com.